Why a doomed spacecraft just crashed into an asteroid. Spoonbender Uri Geller says good aliens will reach Earth first and could live in UK.
This is one of my favorite ways of getting into space, specifically to get stuff into space. We are the most listened to podcast in space.
A new company called Swedish International Space Asset Acceleration Company, very catchy name, and I had to get it out with the help of a frying pan.
What? Yeah, everything is new today. So hi and welcome to episode 34 of the Tech Review, a special edition today because it is World Space Week. Every 2 weeks we gather to discuss the hottest topics from technology, innovation and social media. And on camera 3 today we have Vincent. On camera 2, we have Henrike. On camera 1, this is me. Hi, I'm Tarek. And if you want to join, of course, you are very welcome to join the live chat if you're watching this live right now. The Tech Review is a collaboration of Ideas Engineering, Free Tech Academy and Upday.com. And of course, you can watch us live on YouTube or recorded on YouTube, but if you prefer to just listen to our wonderful voices while you're working out or driving a car or flying through space, which is of course a possibility, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts and on all major podcast platforms. So, what happened in the past 2 weeks?
I love the new music.
Yeah, I got feedback from Alex and she said the old music was very aggressive and very loud. So I thought, let's take something new.
No, that's amazing.
Vibes. Yeah.
And also I have it now on my soundboard here, so I can mix it in or out afterwards if I think it's too loud or not loud enough. Yeah, and I got feedback in the chat. Alex is always right. That's why she is head of fucking everything.
Yeah.
I would say that we are the most listened to podcast in space. Prove me wrong, chat.
I would like to say this as well, but I think NASA also has some podcasts, right? So I could imagine that they are maybe more popular in space.
I would like to see NASA, if you're listening to this, drop us your analytics to prove that actually astronauts listen to it.
This could be a
And
challenge,
tag us,
right?
please, in your social media.
Maybe
while
if
doing that.
we call out this often enough, we can make some astronauts listen to this, and then we can create these statistics that we can actually claim the most listened podcast in space.
I would be absolutely fine also with just a podcast listen in space, right? If one of the many astronauts listening today would drop us again a direct message to tell us that they listen to us in space, I would heavily vote for including this in our logo.
Absolutely.
Because, I mean, I don't know, but I've never heard of podcasts being listened to in space. I'm sure there are some. But I mean, being part of this very unique group of content listened to in space, I mean, it's very. This would be, I would say, something I would put in my Insta bio. Yes, I would.
Absolutely. And I mean, this topic becomes more and more relevant, right? Because right now we are only talking about low Earth orbit. People in space are usually people living on the ISS, for example. But now that we are actually talking about colonizing the moon and building the moon base, I'm not sure how far our radio, like normal shortwave radio length goes. I don't think you can get this on the moon. So I'm not sure how well the internet connection is, how well the internet connection works on the moon base, and if they are going to use like Elon Musk's Starlink satellites that are then going to orbit the moon, I guess. So I really don't know if we have to.
I'm pretty sure they have. I mean, this is something they really have to take care of, because otherwise, probably no one wants to be on the moon. Let's talk about being on Mars if there's no internet connection and like no possibility to stay in touch.
I was under the impression that Voyager is transmitting content that we put in there when Voyager launched via radio frequency. So my question would be, can we receive Voyager? If so, I mean, we know that this actually is quite a very long distance communication.
I'm not sure if Voyager is actually transmitting. I mean, Voyager has this this golden disk with data on it, but I'm not sure if it's actually transmitting anything.
Ah, okay. Well, I told a lie live. Perfect. Nice. Honestly, I thought that it's transmitting. This is something
but still,
I'll tell you next time.
But yeah, figure it out for the next special.
Right.
Next year.
And in terms of internet coverage in space, I think, isn't this exactly why Elon Musk built not SpaceX, but the Starlink satellite network in terms of internet connectivity in space? Like as a prototype for internet connectivity on other planets. Usually whatever Elon Musk is doing is in preparation for his country house on the Mars or moon or wherever.
I mean, I don't know.
Be.
Yeah, another thing that we should do.
Classic Elon.
He's going, when he sees this episode, he's going to laugh about us. Like, oh, they are talking about internet on the moon. It's I'm already there. It's all done.
All taken care of. But then good for us, so that also maybe we have to approach the civilians like going to space. It's maybe much likely to already get them as listeners before they actually become astronauts, and then they take that with them up there.
Exactly. Yeah. So we are already working on this. Yeah. So what happened in the past 2 weeks? The first article comes from me, and this one is I read on CNET, on CNET.com, a very interesting article, which you definitely have heard about. And this is about NASA's DART mission, why a doomed spacecraft just crashed into an asteroid. And I really like this story because we are talking about this first actual experiment of a, how do you say it, an interplanetary defense system or an outer space defense system. And we all saw so many science fiction movies about this topic. We are expecting some asteroids falling down onto Earth and destroy humanity as they did with the dinosaurs, right? And so we are now planning, how can we move the flight path of an asteroid while it is approaching Earth? And I did not really believe in this when I first read this, because these satellites are very small and not that heavy. The specs are from this DART satellite 610 kilograms. So it's heavy, but it's not as heavy as the Asteroid, for example. And the idea is that DART, which stands for Double Asteroid Redirection Test, that this thing is deliberately crashed into the approaching asteroid. And this impact will then redirect the asteroid into a different path. And it sounds, for me at least, ridiculous that this will actually save us, because usually when we watch Armageddon, for example, these asteroids in Armageddon, they are planting nuclear bombs on this asteroid to really push it away. Or what was the plan? Like, it should not be broken apart because then the individual pieces will destroy Earth, but it needs to be like pushed very hardly. And in this, the scientific background of the DART mission is that we push it just a very little bit. They are talking about minutes, like astronomical minutes. But because we are doing this very early and this thing is still very far away, this slight adjustment of the flight path will then cause it to miss Earth because it's still very far away, and a slight change in course will then move it further away. This, of course, means we need to know about this very early and need to do these calculations very precisely, because not that we are then moving it exactly into our flight path because we are moving it into the wrong direction. But the interesting thing is that this the satellite is using camera systems and is steering autonomously. So it is like aiming autonomously for this asteroid. There's not a pilot using a joystick moving the satellite while it's approaching this asteroid. And this is a very interesting experiment, at least from my perspective, because for the first time in history, we are really talking about this interplanetary. No, is it interplanetary? It's outer space defense system. There was something with defense system in this article. Where was it? Yeah. Do you have opinions about that?
Yeah, honestly, I mean, it really gives me Armageddon vibes, like already did right from the start when it was announced, this whole project. And I mean, also decades into space exploration and stuff, I think it's still super fascinating how precisely you can calculate this and make sure that these tiny little pieces out there collide, like, at a certain point in time and stuff like that. So this in itself is already quite amazing. And then I also found it really funny seeing the footage of the actual crash. Like, I think this is one of the first times that actually everybody was happy about losing connection.
Right.
And having this fatal impact. It was like, yay, no footage anymore. So it worked out. It's really interesting, actually.
Yeah. And they also wrote in this article that usually when we build these satellites and these robots for outer space, they are built for longevity and they have to stay up there for decades, for example. And this particular satellite was intentionally built to be crashed into the satellite. So it has a very different purpose and did not have this longevity. Vincent, you wanted to say something?
Yes. I just wanted to agree with Henrike that this is incredible, and this gives me actually a very good feeling about a potential more critical kind of situation, because obviously we could. I mean, this is something we need to see upfront many years, right, in order to build a rocket that can withstand such an asteroid / withstand is maybe the wrong word, but can impact its flight path. And therefore, yes, I mean, in a sci-fi world, there's always an asteroid that nobody expected to collide with our solar system from the local group. But I don't know, it's much faster than anything we could do. I mean, look at Don't Look Up. Which is such an example for it, right? The Netflix movie where I think they had like 6 months left or something like it.
Yeah.
But to me, this gives me the vibe in the real world that we are able, more or less, with today's technology of being a type 2 kind of civilization, that we have the capabilities already to detect things that might be complicated for us or might be impactful for us and work on a successful solution. I like the idea.
One question though, I don't know if you mentioned it or if it's already said in the article, but do they already know now, a couple of days after the impact, if the trajectory changed as planned, or have they already?
That's a good question.
That is a good question. And I think at the time of the article, they said they are going to measure, but I'm not sure. Okay. I did not read that they said mission successful and everything is as we wanted to have it. I guess it takes some time to measure the new course of this asteroid.
Probably.
Or otherwise, I just skipped this paragraph in the article. Yeah, but the mission was successful in terms of they hit this asteroid. So far, so good. But yeah, of course, we need to know if the effect is exactly what we expected it to be. And Vincent, you're totally right. It's very important to make this test, because when the real asteroid that is going to hit Earth will approach, it will be a very bad thing to say, yeah, we never tested this. We have no idea if it's going to work. And now if we see it does not work, we need to recalculate. Do we need heavier satellites? So we actually need to plant like a nuclear weapon on the satellite, or do something else. Yeah. And so we have to test this. Yeah. Otherwise it's not worth anything. Okay.
Yeah, we have to hire Bruce Willis and Ben Affleck to do the job then.
Right. We already have a tested crew for this exact purpose.
And now, this.
We have a new transition, because people were complaining that it looks like a soccer club or something.
What is happening? Yeah.
So, Henrike, tell us something about a Swedish startup.
Yes, happy to. So there is this Swedish startup called Steelfold, and they published just a couple of days ago a press release that they will work together with ESA and a Swedish astronaut, former astronaut Christa Fogelsang, and a new company called Swedish International Space Asset Acceleration Company, very catchy name, on researching if it's possible to bring industrial origami to space. So they have, like Steelfold, they already worked on that with regards to other products down on Earth. For instance, to build like an electric scooter out of simple steel sheets that then can be, with the help of a robotic arm, to be folded into, whatever you want it to fold it into. And they now said this is actually made to be used in space, because what they already see is, I mean, they need less material for different products. They need, or they are of a lighter weight, and they, due to the fact that they do not need so much material, of course, the costs for material are lower, as well as labor costs, stuff like that. Also, the whole process, you do not need to weld the steel sheets, you do not need to stamp or whatever. So the whole process is seems to be pretty easy from what they describe. So now they want to test it with the mentioned companies or people, whether it's possible to use, for instance, to unfold space vehicles up in space, or they also mentioned food storage facilities or whatever you can, imagine that could be useful. And I found this quite interesting, because it reminded me also of a couple of episodes ago, we had this example of Mitsubishi that wants to build antennas in space. Then we had also the wooden satellite and everything, like using new materials or different materials in different ways, and also building products in a vacuum and not down on Earth. So this is like the third example, bringing that into the discussion.
I'd love to know what this does. Oh, sorry.
No, please go ahead.
I just wanted to say I would love to know what this does actually to recycling in space, because this sounds to me like something, I mean, I don't know how the process is actually, happening in the end, but to me this sounds like if you can fold something, you could unfold something again, and then maybe, but honestly, maybe you have a two-shape pattern that the resource is bringing. So this could either be a hub for storage, but it could also transform into, I don't know, just an example. I would love to see what it does, because to me this sounds like a great opportunity. So really cool project, and especially with like the antenna. Maybe we connect Mitsubishi with them. No, but
so if you're listening, Mitsubishi.
No, but jokes aside, I definitely see that producing something not here but up in space is cheaper, so it's perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, and this is again an example where we see that this new drive for space exploration and private space companies is driving innovation. Yeah, and I mean, we as humanity, we are developing space technologies for 70 years now, and this is, of course, always a topic, but now that we are literally trying to colonize different celestial objects and shooting planetary defense systems out into space, it's really a question of how are people going to live on Mars, for example. And now we are talking about 3D printed facilities, or origami folded steel, or satellites from a printer that then are going to be shot into space with like a what was a throwing arm cannon or something like that. These things, and now all of these things, they have never been used in the past, but it's becoming more and more relevant. And also the question of how do we get internet connection to outer space? We have Starlink, we have the interplanetary file system. So the number of really interesting space inventions, space innovations is really piling up, and I really love it. And since we have this space week that we have, the space special, I could imagine that we have to do this more often in the future, because especially with the Artemis program, these stories are going to be more and more relevant for our everyday life.
Yeah, and I really hope actually what Vincent just brainstormed about, that they take that into consideration during their research, that it's not just the one-way thought of how can we build a vehicle, like how much material do we need and how does that look like, but also like the reverse engineering thing, like what else could we make use of, and what else could we build out of it. That would be pretty cool.
What a beautiful example again of adaptations, right? From somewhere completely from different, and then in this sector we see this. I mean, I love how usually innovation in these fields goes not by I have this brilliant idea and we wait for this one and only Werner von Braun type of person who has this vision, this extremely crazy vision, but how this actually is really connected to, okay, so what works on Earth for some kind of problems, doesn't matter what field it is in, because origami, obviously, I think the origin is art. It's great. Did any one of you touch Moonstone yet?
No.
So I'm the only one. That's a very nice turnout.
That's why you mentioned the story. Okay, tell us about it. How was it?
No, there's no story behind it, but what I can tell you is if you ever go to Washington, and I mean, Axel Springer is very active there, so you might have the opportunity to go to Washington. You please, I need to admire you to advise you to go to the Smithsonian Museum for Aerospace. There you can touch Moon and Mars stone. Do you have any pets, Henrike? Also, maybe only temporary.
So I just got confirmation. I mean, of course, go ahead, finish the story.
No. Well, I had a temporary pet today, but you already know about that one.
The 2,000 listeners don't know about it.
Please tell it.
Well, I don't think it's that funny if you do not see the footage, but I had a little pigeon in my living room today, and I had to get it out with the help of a frying pan.
What? Did it survive?
It did, yeah. I was very careful, but it was really confused, and it was exhausted. I was exhausted, and in the end, it was the only thing that helped, like slowly and carefully pushing it into the direction of the window so that it can fly out.
Okay, yeah.
Oh my god.
Was this your first choice of a tool for removing it carefully, like the frying pan?
You know, I was, honestly, Tarek, the minute I saw this pigeon in my living room, I was reminded of the Friends episode with Rachel and the pigeon in the kitchen, and she used like a big, what was it, pan? With a lid on it, but I do not have anything in that size. And I was like, but this is such a smart thing to do. But what do I have that I could use instead? The only thing I had was this frying pan.
Yeah, I mean, we are all innovative engineers, right? So we take whatever we can. Let's make Guyver this pigeon out of the living room.
Exactly.
Also an aviation story, huh? What a beautiful transition.
Yeah, right. An unidentified flying animal.
Object.
Yeah.
And now, this.
Vincent, tell us something about SpinLaunch.
I was so hoping for this article to be first because this matches so much better what we spoke about than my other article. So SpinLaunch, yes. So this is one of my favorite ways of getting into space, because I saw a Kurzgesagt video about it ages ago. And I asked myself, why don't we have this? It's very similar. My question, why don't we have this? Very similar to the space elevator, but that's a space hook. Also, no, the space hook is very whatever. It's complicated. But why don't we have SpinLaunch yet? It's one of my favorite ways. SpinLaunch is a technique and also a startup that, in fact, uses what you can see there. Maybe you scroll a bit down in the article,
Sure.
you see another very interesting illustration. Yes, it's it's a device that uses G-power in the end to push things out to orbit. It's extremely cheap and easy compared to regular ways of getting specifically payload, not people, but payload into space. And yeah, it uses this system of a wheel to push things out into orbit. They are partnering with NASA. Also very interesting. Because they had a few very successful launches and now went through a financing phase. And yeah, everything's looking great. And I just wanted to bring this today because I think that, again, in my opinion, one of the most futuristic but very close range in terms of engineering work we need to do in order to get into space, specifically to get stuff into space.
Yeah.
And then we are back at topics like Starlink. Do we still need rockets, or maybe is this enough? Or other things we want to shoot into space in order to be maybe more connected or have other things. Also, and this is my last point, this helps a lot with space debris. I think, Henrike, you brought this a few episodes ago, right? We spoke about space debris and some connection, and it's a big topic, specifically when we not talk about like the big missions like Moon or Mars, because obviously those missions appear only a few times in a lifetime, at least until now. Travel to the ISS beside, and obviously payload and other objects moving into space, they create much more debris, and this would now change with this. So I'm really excited to see when this will be used. But then very last sentence, I promise, this could be a very affordable solution and a very realistic solution for a lot of the private sector, but also for a lot of countries to be part of this space rush.
Yeah. And I think, especially for extraterrestrial, like not alien, but if we have something like this on the moon, for example, and we talked about printing satellites out of the 3D printer, I think this is a very energy efficient way to launch this from a celestial body that has low gravity, like the moon. It's very easy to use one of these things to shoot satellites from the surface of the moon, for example, into the moon orbit. Yeah, and you do not need fuel for this. Yeah, probably.
So maybe SpinLaunch should also get in touch with Steelfold.
Yeah,
to
please,
see
yes.
whether they can build that also out of their material. But yeah, it's cool to see that they can move further with their approach, because I remember that probably like a year ago or something we talked about SpinLaunch the first time. So great that it's still kind of in the testing, and hopefully soon they can actually work with it.
Yeah.
Looking at the moon base, for example, what is it called? Stargate? No, that's a series.
The other one.
Gateway. So looking at Gateway, right? I mean, we just all privately spoke about that. We finished when it came out For All Mankind.
Yeah.
And the last season. And I mean, the issues they have, right? A lot of them is we don't have the right payload with us. We don't have the right material. We don't have the right, all of these things in the episode before. I don't want to spoil anything, but in the season before, that they had very similar issues on the moon. I mean, all of this specifically for something that's so close, then the moon, Mars is a bit more difficult, but this is something that we definitely could work with in order to actually send stuff like a postal system from one object to another without a lot of energy and waste. It's amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think this is
Totally.
crucial for long-term missions out there. Because, for example, the ISS, it's already difficult enough to have stuff on the ISS, but in the worst case, they go into their evacuation capsule and they are back on Earth, for example. But if you are sitting on the Mars, you're really relying on the stuff that you have there, and having a 3D printer or a steel folding system and like generic material. This is very, very valuable to have out there.
Totally. Yeah.
And now, this.
It is me again. Let's talk about the Artemis 1. And this is a story that was supposed to be a better one, because in the past, shortly before the first launch window of the Artemis 1, we said something like, yeah, next time we are going to definitely talk about the Artemis 1, because then it will be started and will be amazing stories of the most powerful rocket orbiting the moon and coming back and everything. And it has not started yet. And so I brought this article from SpaceNews.com about Artemis 1's launch plans, which have slipped again. And if you did not follow up on the story, it's not the first time that the launch was scrapped, but we had one launch window on September 23rd, then another proposed start window on September 27th, and the latest one, I think it was on October 2nd, which is from where we are filming right now, 2 days ago, and it did not happen again. Yeah, and so now we come into this range where the Artemis launch team actually has this problem that their start certificate, I'm not sure what's the right word for this, the start certificate is going to expire because the rocket is now standing for a long time out there waiting to be started, and so they have to move it back and recertificate everything so that they get another clearance for starting. Yeah, which is very unfortunate, because every day that we wait for this, it's very expensive. Yeah, and the last big problem was this hurricane, of course, that was destroying half of Florida. When yeah, I saw these images and these videos. It's really horrific. And yeah, but they have their rocket bunker out there where everything is safe. Yeah, but we are still waiting for the Artemis mission to launch, and it's really depressing. One of the latest start windows was in collision with like the next SpaceX launch, where they planned to move the SpaceX Crew 5 out to space, and so it's of course, like, as we all know from the airport when we're sitting in the plane and we can't start because other planes also have to start and we have to get in line. And with these spaceport in Cape Canaveral, it's kind of the same. Yeah, other space crews are waiting for their time slot, and so we can't just launch whenever we want. Yeah, so these space news is basically about, we don't have news. We're still waiting for the Artemis 1 launch, and I was really planning to do a live stream. Yeah, on TikTok, because I regularly talk about space topics on TikTok, and so I wanted to do a live stream and everything was prepared. And now it was for the third time that I had to scrap the live stream, and I wanted to show like NASA TV and everything live, and yeah, and I'm still waiting.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate also, because the media coverage of the first launch attempt was incredible,
Yeah.
not just from NASA side. I mean, they always do a pretty good job when it comes to that, but also on European side, you could see there was, I mean, nothing compared to NASA, but still there was a lot going on. People were talking about that. You could read about it in social media. You could, follow along on different channels. So that was really, unfortunate, because a lot of people who are usually not that into space, they're like, okay, and now, boring, next day, I forgot about it.
Yeah, right.
Because they're not used to these kind of missions that this is actually like how it's always going.
Mhm.
Like if you really plan a launch and it works on the first launch attempt, that's a really rare thing to do. But
Right.
if it's just about any kind of satellite, no one cares. And there's also not that much fuss about it. But in that case, it was great that so many people looked at it and, wanted to watch it and everything. But, the more unfortunate it is when then nothing happened. And then, okay, now we postponed and now we have to postpone again. And I mean, all for very valid reasons. And better safe than sorry, especially with such a prestige project. But yeah, it's sad and it's kind of annoying that we have to wait longer now. And I mean, now end of October, I don't know if that is still even possible due to the fact that they have to move it back to the VAB. But then there's a big launch window in November, so I'm kind of hoping for that one.
Right. The article
to
says
actually work
exactly November 5th. By the way, my soundboard has some more sounds like
Silence.
even the fail sound failed. Everything is failing as always.
Awesome.
If our tech review is valuable for you, please give us feedback with a like or a comment. That would help us tremendously and it wouldn't cost you anything. And if you don't want to miss the next episode, just click on the subscribe button. And now, back to the news.
Henrike, I asked this
And
last
now,
time.
this.
Sorry.
But no time for that, Vincent.
Please,
No.
Vincent.
No, it's fine.
No,
Thank you.
no, please go ahead. We have time.
No, okay, yes or no answer, Henrike? Yes or no, Henrike? Okay, yes or no answer from Henrike, please. Sorry. Is this now getting delayed more and more and more? Is this at one point interfering with Artemis 2 and 3? Or is this still, would you say, a time that we have issues with launching and everything, but we are okay and on plan for 2 and 3?
There is no yes and no answer. We also discussed this last time. I mean, at one point, probably yes, it's going to delay it because obviously you need the results from the test that it is, when it comes to the second mission, when it comes to building, the second module and the third module. This is already happening. So this is not delayed by that per se, but yeah, depending on what the data and the results of this first launch will be, this can, of course, have an impact then at one point. So,
Yep.
Yes and no.
I agree.
And now, this.
Henrike, please tell us something about NASA and SpaceX.
Yes, happy to. This time I also will mention the article. It's from The Verge. I forgot my earlier one. Sorry for that. Yes, NASA is studying whether SpaceX can visit the Hubble telescope or not. They partner on a 6-month study on if that is possible. And it involves also the Polaris program, the first private human space flight effort. Maybe not the first, it's actually the second, because it's also funded by the billionaire Jason Isaacman. And if you've seen or followed along the Inspiration 4 mission, you know him. He was the mission commander back then. And now, I think next year, the first Polaris mission is planned. So very interesting kind of guy who spends all his money into space now. And NASA doesn't want to do it themselves because they say Hubble is still in a good enough condition and still can continue for a good amount of years to operate, at least until the end of the decade. But it's still kind of, decreasing in its orbit. And the last time someone was there to bring it up again was in 2009 and was part of a space shuttle mission. And since then, it kind of decreased. Can you say decrease in that regard? By about 30 kilometers. So, slowly going down. And it's really there's a lot of question marks whether this mission could be possible. It's not clear whether this whole mission would actually require a crew, which would be like the test with the Polaris crew, or if an autonomous vehicle would actually better, to do that, or whether it's actually possible for SpaceX to safely visit the telescope, because this is a completely different technology that has nothing to do with SpaceX, and it's like from decades ago, and can that actually work? And this is also the reason why they actually want to visit and actually test it out, because you could ask yourself, like, why the heck is that even necessary? It's still working for a couple of years and there's no need. It still operates perfectly so far. But it's exactly the question, can it work out that if there's like space tech that wasn't designed with SpaceX in mind can be, not recycled, but like
reused. Yeah.
Reused, exactly. Or pimped again to be something, live even more, like 20 more years or whatever. So yeah, this is basically the only reason that's also mentioned in the article. But you could also think from like a sustainability point of view and also from a collaboration point of view, because you have so many players, you have so many products out there from different decades with different kind of technologies. So it's not just about whether SpaceX can adapt to that, but also others, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I love this project. I love this mission, but from a financial point of view, I am very surprised. I was very surprised when I read about this, because now all the fuss is about the James Webb Telescope and how James Webb is outperforming Hubble by so much. And so I am actually surprised that someone brought this money into this project and funding this project of restoring, repairing, improving Hubble, because it is outdated technology. And I would have thought that the moment that James Webb was declared a success, that they will shut down and ignore and abandon the Hubble telescope, even though it is one of the very, very valuable assets in space that we have out there. But everything needs to be cheaper and cost-cutting, and we need the budgets on other spaces. So I was really surprised to see that they invest in this project.
Exactly, but this is also a point I think they mentioned in the article, because this is the first thing you think about, like, but this is like old news now, but it's nice to see that they still kind of want to make use of that, because Hubble, for instance, they sent the footage from the DART mission that we just saw. So it's still adding a lot of value to this scientific research that's currently going on. So it would be a shame to say, like, okay, now you're too old. We focus on the young on the younger gang, and you're out of scope now. So bye.
Yeah, that's true.
And now this.
Let's save some time, because we are at article 5 out of 10. So, Vincent.
We have 10.
Yeah, we are all space geeks, and so we all brought a lot of stuff with us.
I brought consumer technology into this, but with space. No, because this is connected to another article. I did it in this I don't know, way. So I hope that it work in this way, because now I can present to you the satellite communication thing, and then later I don't think we will, but potentially we would have heard about how different companies have different approaches about how communication works. Yes. So iPhone 14 Pro, they brought satellite communication, the same for Apple Watch Ultra, and what they do is that they have a specific satellite antenna band that connects to a satellite and then back down to Earth. And that's extremely interesting, because there are as far as I understand, two different technologies out there to communicate via satellite. Number one, both of them are really low. I'll talk about that in a sec. But number one is the way Apple did it, with a specific antenna that communicates to satellite, which is why when you see the animations of it, Tarek, please scroll down a bit in the article. You will see that you have to point your phone at the satellite to actually communicate with it. It's crazy. And then you can send very basic pings of communication. The other way is to communicate with an antenna that works like a mobile phone antenna, but in space. So, and then you have a phone provider on Earth to work with this. So this would enable global roaming. And this is actually what the telecom is doing. T-Mobile actually partnered with SpaceX, who kind of can do exactly that. And the result of this is roaming worldwide, eventually being added to all T-Mobile US plans, because as a roaming partner, T-Mobile can work with the coverage of SpaceX to then communicate with your phone. So wherever there is Starlink coverage, we know a lot of places have it, we will eventually be able to communicate with the best roaming. And again, Apple has a different approach. And I summarized just the two articles into one, but I love that there are different approaches about this. I personally think in the end it will come down to the answer: what is the more potent option, right? Will we see a big development in antenna band development? We know Apple is working on their own solutions, just like with the silicon chips. So we potentially could see that Apple comes up with something extremely innovative and makes communication via satellite with their own antenna actually kind of standard. And then obviously this would be the solution I think we will see in a short term. However, if we see that this is not happening because it's just too hard to do, we potentially could see what Starlink is doing right now with T-Mobile. It's the more affordable option, and therefore I'm really excited to see where this is going.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially, we rarely talk about this. We always talk about 5G, 6G, which is going to be built in the next 8 years. And this is always like the next quantum leap in mobile communication. But we rarely talk about how the satellite network is going to play into this. And I think it was basically only Elon Musk and SpaceX and the Starlink network that really made it like public domain, not public domain, like publicly accessible satellite technology. Before that, you only had in very rare cases these highly expensive satellite telephones if you were out wherever, like with military usage and these things. But today, basically, if you are with your van somewhere in the desert, you can put your Starlink dish on your van rooftop and simply use it wherever you are. Yeah, because you can reach the satellites. And I could really imagine that in the future, when we have probably 2 or 3 or 4 different providers of satellite networks in different coverage areas or bandwidths or however they are dividing up the space, that maybe at some point of time this will be like mainstream communication network, which is then the most convenient thing, because we are shooting printed satellites into space with slingshot cannons, and this will be very cost effective. And maybe this will then replace like the standard sending antennas that we have for 5G and 6G in the future. Maybe it becomes more available and more cheap.
Imagine how much backwards this actually is, right? That we have antenna towers that actually in the end give us the roaming or the strength of network.
Yeah.
So eventually, I think we need to transition to this, just because I think economy eventually will transition into a more automated state, and then we just need a very, very high coverage.
Yeah, true.
And now this.
I brought another article about Firefly Aerospace reaches orbit for the first time. And I read this in TechCrunch, and this is something a little bit, I'm not sure if you read about this. It's not high profile news, because it was basically a first successful launch of a new space company. But for me personally, I really like this news because it shows that the private space industry is still growing. We always have these the typical players like SpaceX and Virgin, which we read a lot about because they are conducting space missions every day. But now we have Firefly Space Systems, and they are also in the game. And they had their first launch. They had their first launch actually in September 2021, but this one was not successful because the vehicle exploded mid-flight. So yeah, did not work well. But now they actually had their first successful launch, and so they are now listed in the list of successful private space companies. And yeah, all in all, this is actually the news. And I'm looking forward to see another player. And of course, more competition in this market helps drive innovation, right? And so we now also have to talk about Firefly Aerospace.
But cool that it then worked already on the second attempt. I mean, SpaceX needed 4, 5. Yeah, and I mean, they were almost bankrupt, so it was their last shot in this really meaning of the word. But they now made it in the second try, so that's pretty cool to see. And it's an American startup company, or where are they from?
This is a good question. I think it's not easy to say because the founder, I read this, the founder, I think he was originally from Ukraine. What was it? Max Polyakov. I read this somewhere in here.
It says there is a UK citizen but was born in the Ukraine.
Right. And the start was made in California. So I have to research where exactly this company is registered. I could imagine that it's an American company, but I think it was bought Firefly Space Systems, which weren't bankrupt, and was then reborn as Firefly Aerospace. And it was acquired, or its assets were acquired by Max Polyakov's Noosphere. Yeah, so probably not that easy to track down where this company is originally coming from, because it was like bankrupt and bought and reinvented. But I could also imagine that space technology became more and more mainstream. So as you said before, when we observed SpaceX and their numerous failed attempts to launch, it could be that in the future certain space technology components become very, very well tested, and so they are just bought and they just work out of the box, and space rockets will be assembled like cars, like standard hardware, and then we expect it simply to work.
And now, this.
Vincent, tell us something about Lynk.
We can skip this one. I summarized it all up with the other article. I mean, if you want to scroll down, I think there was a graphic. No, I'm wrong. So Lynk is the one of the other operators which actually is offering telecommunication hubs in space, so that then third-party providers can use this in order to deliver roaming worldwide.
Yeah, this is like with Firefly, the space company. In the past, it was the news of the century that we have a new space company sending out satellites or something. And now you can't remember all the names of these companies sending out spaceships into outer space and launching satellite networks and all of these things. This is so mainstream. Yeah, it's really, you open up the Wikipedia page for satellite telecommunication providers and you get like a list with names that you have never heard of. It's really crazy how this private industry is booming.
I just thought this with Firefly. I think that when SpaceX, Henrike, you mentioned SpaceX, and they failed a few times, and I think nobody was criticizing them because they delivered like the dream of, look, we can build this ourselves. We don't need this magic North American company, a company owned by the United States. We can do it ourselves. And I think this goes away more and more now. And I am asking myself at what point we start to divide up and also to, take companies out of the air again, out of space again, because we need to divide up what tasks are there to do. I mean, right now, space right now is for exploration, for science, maybe for communication, but it's very Earth-oriented. And I think the economic value of space right now is very limited to a few sectors, right? I mean, it's not like we're not using space for extremely fast transportation, which we could potentially, and or I don't know, again, travel somewhere else. Most of the stuff is really Earth directed and very summarized up in a few industries. So I'm really excited to see at what point we see that there is a limit at where we just don't need more companies.
We are a capitalistic driven society. I'm pretty sure the concept of companies is going to exist for a very long time. And on the other hand, I'm very curious to see, and I'm not sure if we are going to see this, but when we have the Mars colony and operations controlled by Mars, because they are doing some mining or whatever they are doing there, that the first company is going to be founded on Mars or have their headquarters on Mars because they are working there. They have all their workers there and they're living there. Or then later in time have the Mars colony declaring independence and we have like an independent nation on Mars. And then we are back in sci-fi world. But I'm kind of sure that at some point of time this is going to happen.
Can we not say our podcast is moon-based? I mean, we can buy technically area on like land on the moon. So what if we pitch in and we buy like 1 square foot, 1 square meter of land? And then we say this is the news, this is the tech review land, and therefore we base our podcast on it.
I love it. I have to research this.
I'm in.
Yes, we are all in. we will do this. Nice. Register at the company headquarter on Moon. Nice. Comes onto the agenda, to my to-do list for tomorrow.
And now, this.
And I have another article about Mars. I read on space.com. It's true. These articles are not the most exciting articles, but I wanted to take this opportunity of World Space Week to talk about everything that is happening out there right now. And one thing that happens on Mars right now is that the Ingenuity Mars helicopter had another launch. Yeah, and it's not really spectacular because it is just this flying drone, and it flew up for what was it, 30 meters or something? It was 10 meters high, and then flying 111 meters wide and landing again and making some pictures. And it was something like mapping the surface. And it's research. That's what these helicopters on Mars are doing, right? Checking out the surface on Mars. And so it's not really spectacular, but then again, it is a robot on Mars flying around. So for me, it's very, very interesting. And what I liked on this article, and this was one of the main reasons that that motivated me to bring this article, is that the NASA team controlling this thing, they are collecting stone samples, and the Perseverance robot there is collecting rocks, or what's the word? Abrasing rocks, like cutting it off the Earth. And so they had this incident where they tried to cut off some moon rocks, some Mars rocks, and they wrote, the Mars surface behaved in an unexpected way, and so the rock was not able to cut off as expected. And I really like this because I imagine these hordes of NASA scientists and engineers planning for weeks to cut this particular stone in a particular way, and then after weeks of working, their mission of this month failed because the rock behaved in a unexpected way. And this is usually what I do every day. I'm like setting up websites or configuring servers, and then it takes like a week unexpected work because the system was behaving in an unexpected way. And I usually feel very, very dumb because this is standard technology and thousands of people are using it. But because of the strange behavior, I'm delayed for a week. But I see even NASA is dealing with this, and this Mars rock is behaving in an unexpected way, and so they have like difficulties. Yeah, so I love these standard NASA problems where they have to deal with unexpected rock behavior. That's it.
The small things.
The small things on Mars, right? Damn rock.
Imagine how this must look. I mean, all those NASA scientists, us, everybody talking about this, right? Planning for weeks, as you said, but on Mars, right? It's a shitty little drone flying around and then going back to its hub because the stone moved 2 centimeters too far to the left.
Right. And also, like planning this mission, they have these maps and they know exactly on the centimeter exactly where is the rover, where is the helicopter, and then they have to time it and charge it with the solar panels, and then it's flying exactly for 111 meters in a certain direction. Yeah, it sounds so spectacular, but it's a helicopter on Mars.
Yeah, I mean, and we talked about that in the very first article, right? Like how amazing it is what they already calculate, what they know, and how precisely all of these missions work. And then it's those small things, and that makes it so relatable and I don't know, and funny in a way. But because you say like it's on Mars, it's in space,
Yeah.
it's planned for months, and then whoops.
Right.
And now, this.
And now I have... Okay,
Is this acting in an unexpected way?
that is true.
Can you have the tush?
Wrong
Oh, I
button.
thought you'd do that.
Browser window is frozen. God damn it.
Can you select the URL down in the list?
No, I can do nothing right now. Everything is not moving. Nothing is moving. Come on. The last article is the most important one. I have to...
Oh my god, what a pressure.
Oh, it is. Yes.
It is definitely. I had this problem in the past, and then I clicked everywhere, and at some point of time, it was moving again.
Posted the link in the chat. Maybe you can open it from there, Tarek.
I can try, but I think I have to kill the browser. One moment.
Maybe you can just leave it like that and tell us about it.
No,
and
no, I
delete
have
the
to-
article.
No.
Okay.
No.
I haven't. I just saw the URL before the call, and I mean I don't know what's on the article visible there.
Browser has been restarted. Now I have to load it again in here. There we go. I can cut all of this in post.
All
So,
for the
Apologies for the 2,000 live viewers that we have right now. I can't even see how many there are because my browser just crashed, so I'm blind right now. Okay.
It's been 2,000 or more. Yeah,
So
that's why it crashed.
yeah, exactly. Let me quick.
Cannot handle the traffic.
There we are. So the final article for today is this, the most important piece of news that we have today. And I read on the Daily Star, my very trusted newspaper of choice for this kind of information, that Prince Philip investigated UFOs for 70 years, and now the Royal X-Files could be released after the Queen died. Yeah, because now Prince Philip and the Queen are dead, and so the people are talking about that these so-called British, the Royal X-Files should be released. Yeah, the story is that Prince Philip was very, very interested in aliens and UFOs, and this was on the one hand public knowledge because it is kind of his hobby and people are very interested in the hobbies of the royals, but on the other hand, these kind of stories were kept very well hidden because the royal family does not really want the public to speculate about these weird hobbies of chasing UFOs. Yeah, but the thing is that Prince Philip had a lot of influence and a lot of high value sources, so that the information that he in his research collected could be very, very interesting. And everything that he collected in this direction, people are of course very, very interested in. Yeah, and of course this art, I wasn't sure if I should bring this this article because in the Daily Star we can also read things like aliens are demons sent by evil powers to corrupt and feed off human passions, or we are getting ready to probe Uranus, says NASA scientists, right? So it's we should talk about this in the next tech review. Yeah, what else do we have here? Like, don't miss Japan orders citizens to take shelter underground after North Korea launches missile. Okay, I think this is actually a real headline. I read this, but Spoonbender Uri Geller says good aliens will reach Earth first and could live in UK. Yeah. So very, very important. But the thing is,
Oh my god.
it is actually known that Prince Philip had this this obsession with aliens, and so I wouldn't be surprised if we could actually get some news at some point of time when there are some leaks, maybe, or actually some release. I couldn't imagine that the royal family will willingly give out this information, but we know how WikiLeaks works. At some point of time, someone will leak something, and then it might be really interesting if it's just like garbage that he collected, or if he actually had access to files from the Royal Air Force, because this is actually something that this article says, that he worked together with people in the Royal Air Force, and it might be that this is like NSA level classified information about things that were actually unknown to the public, right? But that's
Super interesting.
Yep.
In the end, it's probably just like, I mean, they already delivered the perfect title for, a series on any kind of streaming platform of your choice. The Royal X-Files. I mean, I would watch it. I bet you, Tarek, would watch it as well.
Yes, absolutely.
So yeah, that's.
I have trust issues. I would never believe that this is all. I mean, I'm not quite sure. I mean, I'm not quite sure if there are actually aliens out there. This is, I think, a whole another discussion.
Future special.
You're not sure. Okay.
No, I'm not sure. No. Because of this filter system, right? I mean, you know it maybe, the Fermi paradox, that why we are alone, and it's getting too deep for now. But generally, I think I would always have issues with, is this really everything, or is there something else, some other documentation in Area 51 that we just don't know about?
Yeah.
It probably is.
Definitely. And I mean, you're absolutely right. On the other hand, I think technically we need to agree that there are definitely UFOs in terms of unidentified flying objects. There is stuff that is not identified and is not explainable. It doesn't necessarily mean that all of these are aliens in the sky, but in terms of things are happening and things are showing up on radar or on camera and people do not really know what it is, it's unidentified. Yeah? So in fact, unidentified flying objects are existing. And another article that I wanted to bring, I'm not sure if it was last time, that I found very interesting. There are scientists who are claiming that the octopus is actually an alien because they create these genetic, what's it called, family hierarchies of different species. And there's something special about this octopus, and it does not fit into the evolutionary tree of the sea creatures. And it has very, very complex DNA and everything. And so there are scientists who claim that at some point in ancient times, maybe the octopus came with an asteroid or something and became an Earth animal. Yeah, but it might be that this is actually an alien animal that came from outer space. So if we take these theories, we might actually already have aliens and UFOs and everything, but it might not look like we see on TV. Yeah? It must not be, it's not necessarily like these small gray creatures with large black eyes or something. Yeah. And at some point of time, I'm pretty sure we are going to find extraterrestrial life, but it's going to be amoeba or bacteria somewhere on like a foreign planet or a moon rock or something like that. And this is technically, it's going to be alien, right? Because it's life from a different body than the Earth. So I personally believe in this stuff, but I'm not sure if it's going to look like Hollywood is showing to us. Yeah, that was the final article that we brought today. We are way over time. As always, we had technical issues and difficulties, but it was still very, very fun. And I am highly motivated to do more special episodes for certain topics, depending on whatever happens. So maybe at some point of time, we are going to have something like a mobile week where we are talking about mobile technologies, or another week where we are talking about TikTok or something like that, because for some reason, yeah, but I really, really like it, and it will help us enormously with our SEO power, right?
That's the reason why we did that.
So thank you, Vincent and Henrike, for showing up and for bringing all those amazing space topics. And since we are all space nerds, right, Vincent? we are very, very looking forward to the next World Space Week.
Showing
You've been to my place. Yeah, I am a nerd. I think never ever before somebody really tried to be a nerd, right? Like saying I am a nerd, believe me.
I love the fact that you were offended by not being called a nerd. That's good. That's how it should be.
Yeah, I mean, nerds.
I thought that you guys know me. Honestly, I thought that you guys know me well enough to know that I have a passion for those things. I just forgot my merch in the car. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know that you have the passion, but you're not showing it proudly.
The next time we have a topic, I will be over the top.
I challenge you. When we do Mobile Week, I expect you to show up in all of your NASA gear.
Or something other mobile, I don't know.
Nokia.
Yes.
No, but yeah, thank you very
in
much.
Henrike's plane. Sorry.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you can fly us to our acre of moon land that we are going to buy and claim our headquarters on.
Sure.
On your
Already
space
an
plane.
acre. What else is coming next?
Let's see.
Let's buy a hill. Yes, a mountain.
The
Perfect.
thing is, we are laughing about these things, but if I'm going to start Googling, there's all kinds of weird things out there. So I'm not sure if it might already be possible to register a company on Moon or something like that.
But you could buy a place, that we know for sure.
The thing is, I mean, we're already over time, but we can actually talk about these things because there is this international space treaty. There is actually something like regulations and governmental agreements about property in space. And according to this, we can't buy a piece of moon because these celestial bodies, they are not in possession of anyone, so nobody can buy it. But still, if you go online, there are people selling you like an acre of land on the moon. So these things are happening somewhere in this legal gray area. And so it's really, really interesting to read about what is possible to do so. And if there is somewhere a gray area where we can register a company on Moon or Mars, I think we should do this just to try out to see what happens. I want to have like a postal address on the Mars.
But then do we need to do like space taxes? Because I really want to keep using, this is not an advertising, but I really want to keep using TaxFix, which is just for private people. And I don't want to jump over to Viso, which is really annoying.
Mars edition.
Yes. And then I don't know, like, where is your company registered? I can't find Mars service. How can you help me? It's actually... South Pole.
Amazing.
Did you know where?
Yeah, now it's opening up Google. Okay, we're in.
What I don't remember. DART mission. When you Google for this,
Oh yeah.
then
I
this
saw
happens.
What the fuck? Nah. What?
In terms of you Google for weird things and weird things are happening, and that's so. I promise. I'm going to Google for registering a company on Mars, and let's see what we are going to find. It's going to be glorious.
This is the cliffhanger now to the next space special episode.
Check us out in 2 weeks to find out how we go, with what planet we went. It's not Neptune, we can tell you that. And everything else will be in our next episode.
Right, streaming live from Uranus. See you there.
Uri Geller said so. Bye-bye.
Bye.